Hello viewers and welcome to the Dailies on Echo Television International. I'm Sarah Elisha Dasham and I have Rachel Tanzi here as my co-host. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning, Sarah.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Have preparation for weekends?
Fine, going well.
And together with the public holiday on Monday to actually look at Nigerians' independent access to. So really have to, like say we want to check the progress, expectations, what are Nigerians expecting come 2023 elections, and also as we celebrate 62 years. Well, we're live on Facebook and also on YouTube. You can drop your comment there, and at 9:30 we shall open the phone lines where you can be actively involved. I'll be taking the first paper, which is the Blueprint newspaper. The first story here says PDP crisis get messier. Aparaja Dan Obi, 3 other National Working Committee members return 151.2 million naira pro-IU bribe. And the writer says it's housing allowance, not bribe. This is coming from the party. So if you've been following closely concerning the stories on the PDP, you know that a lot has been happening there. So you can read detail of that story on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper. And the big story here at Party's Peace Accord, Buhari Adusalani, Jonathan harp on issue-based campaign. Urges politicians to see 2023 as opportunity to further national unity. And INEC is saying we will monitor parties' compliance with campaign spending. Tinubu IU absence, Atiku Obi Kwankwaso and others sign. You can read all of that too on page 6 of the Blueprint. Supreme Court upholds Adeleke as Osun PDP candidate. Terrorists kill Niger monarch, 14 subjects, slave farmer in Kaduna. And we have some riders here following that story too. Downside of the paper, we have FCTA set to crush 1,000 impounded motorcycles. Urges Okada riders to invest in other ventures. You can read more on page 14. NICO releases 2022 SSCE result. Candidates record 10% drop. And we really need to check reason why there's a drop in this result, because that is to show that educational standard is dropping drastically. And it brings to mind, I begin to ask questions, because I asked this first question when JAM brought down the cutoff point for universities. I think it's about 160 now. I remember during our time for art course, it had to be 180. For science course, it had to be 200 and above. And now you begin to see that if it is dropping to 160, we begin to ask questions, why are we dropping it? Are we saying that our educational standard is dropping? Are we saying that our teachers are not capable? Because we've been complaining about having like say half-baked graduates in the universities presently, and a lot has been going on. So I think if we're going to really look at this thing, there's a problem somewhere, and we need to go back to check the standard of our education, because back was then, even in government schools, then you could see they record very high scores, even more than those in the private schools. You begin to ask, why are we having that? JAM is bringing it down. NICO, there was a problem. There have to even be, people have to keep rewriting WAEC and NICO. So I think we really need to go back and check what the problem is. I mean, NICO is done by Nigerians, said by Nigerians. So you begin to ask, it's not like it's WAEC that will say it's by some West African countries. Even at that, we're recording huge success when it comes to our students. So I really hope that the government will go back to check the curriculum for teachers that have been having lesson notes for the past 10 to 5 years. They have not even, go back to check what is obtainable right now to go back and check, change their lesson note. I think they really need to do that.
And we'll appreciate a more detailed report. It's not just good enough for you to say 10% and leave it there. Can we know the region where more of this drop is coming from? It will help us know better, because we know the fact that in the Northeast there's a lot of insecurity and students out of school. This could also be factors affecting the performances of students and teachers. So when you bring a more detailed report of, okay, this is where the drop is highest, what region, then we can know that, okay, it's not only the standard of education that is dropping, but probably other factors like insecurity is also contributing to this drop, so that we would have a full picture of what is the problem surrounding our educational sector and try to fix it. But then this report is good, but it needs to be more detailed.
No, I think I will not agree less with you about it, that, you know, Institute have really, because, like, for example, state like Zamfara, they did not register for WAEC this year because they think they're still owing WAEC some money, and some other states. And, you know, that was when I said, when I heard where the governor of that state actually gave out cards to put, you know, traditional rulers, I began to ask, and this is the same state that were unable to pay WAEC. So just like you said, there are other factors
of priority,
misplacement of priority.
Exactly.
So I really think, just like you said, we need to check what are the factors surrounding this apart from the educational standard dropping. I think there are other factors that are responsible. Well, let's look at other stories still on the Blueprint newspaper. SEC exposes the new law on Sharia advisory service. Hiking rate fails to halt the Naira fall, hit new low of 334 Naira per dollar. We remember we saw this on Tuesday where it was 730. As of yesterday, it was about 735, 734. And that is for you to buy, and then selling it will be like 737 Naira. And they're not even selling dollar presently in the bank. So for you to be able to get the dollar, you have to get it from the black market. So you know what that entails. So I hope we really look into this, because they said some of the reasons surrounding this is immediately the CBN raised the interest rate. That really affected the dollar rate and lots of things. And they were doing that to actually check the inflation rate, and it has even led to more and more, coupled with the fact that we're having campaigns and all that. So I just hope that we really have to look into what we can do to stabilize our Naira. Just like you said that day, we hope that in a week we could have that where the Naira is stable. If it's 500, it should be 500 if it is, because as of Monday it even went to even like 400 and something per dollar. I begin to wonder why it keeps fluctuating. So we hope that they look into that. Nigeria loses 6.272 trillion Naira to oil theft annually. This is coming from the CSO. Last story here, Bajabi Amida urges ASU to end strike amid negotiation, where we hope that whatever the issue is, they will resolve it. You can read detail of that on page 15 of the Blueprint newspaper, and that's all on the Blueprint.
On the This Day newspaper, World Bank approves $750 million to strengthen business enabling environment in states, says 36 states, federal capital territory capable of catalyzing private investment. Federal government considers more policy action to support MSME in 2022 Finance Act, and you can continue reading that on page 5. Adamu denies writing Tinubu as APC expands council to over 2,000 membership. And the big story on This Day is still on the 2023 election. Tinubu absent as Atiku, Obi, Kwankwaso and others sign peace accord. And the writer for that story, parties should avoid insult and incitement. This is coming from the President Buhari. EU, Jonathan Police IG sue for credible poll. INEC vows to monitor parties against abusive campaign and spending limits. This is coming from Ayelowo. Tinubu is the big masquerade that comes out last. And Buhari to judges, be impartial arbiters in election matters. And you can continue reading that on page 5. And still on This Day newspaper, inauguration of body of benches complex, and there's a picture story where you can see the president, what the PDP has to say in that allegation on page 29. And that's all the news on This Day.
On Vanguard newspaper, fresh showdown looms between telcos, banks over 80 billion Naira debt, which you can find on page 26. Mbaka ministry reopens after months of closure. And on the Yobe North senatorial ticket, I won't appeal judgment. This is coming from Lawan. Son stabs father, jumps over Zaria, because it's not just normal for this to happen.
So, before we move forward, when you mentioned mental health, I felt like we don't take that seriously in this country, and it needs to be checked, because anytime the thing called mental health is mentioned, we go to mad people on the street, but we forget that things like depression, it's mental health. And it needs to be looked at. There are different types of mental health diseases and situations that a lot of people are suffering from. But in this country, it's like we're afraid to say I'm not mentally okay because it's being associated to madness or like the crazy, dirty people we see on the street. But no, a lot of people are going through a lot of mental issues that if not treated, or if you don't come out and say it, it leads to something like suicide. And for this son to do something like this, I want to believe he's not in the right state of his mind, because I always see suicide as you being out of your mind. You are not in the right mental stage. So like there need to be more awareness on mental health, the different type of mental health diseases and sicknesses that someone can go through, and the symptoms might not be that loud as you picking things in trash or wearing dirty clothes and all of that. There are various type of symptoms. Perhaps this child might have been going through a lot of things and nobody took note of that. Nobody noticed and said, okay, he did this. This is not normal. Can we check on that and things like that? So mental health is something that should be taken seriously in this country. Enough is not done concerning it.
Of course, Rachel, and I hope we'll put hands together, not just leave it to the government, but NGOs and even private individuals can all put their hands together. Well, let's continue on the Vanguard newspaper. We have on strike, reps broker peace between the federal government and ASU. Federal government targets 242% raise in export of services to 6.5 trillion naira in 4 years. The big story, which is on 2023, foray in APC over campaign team list. The writer says confusion over Adamu's letter to Tinubu. Letter not from Adamu, says the APC National Working Committee. Adamu out to hijack the campaign council. This is coming from Tinubu. And Tinubu not ill in London. This is coming from SUS. May meet Wiki and others to make more concession to the APC National Working Committee. So you can actually read all that concerning the issue on APC and also that of the PDP. And on the peace accord, Buhari, Abdulsalami, Jonathan demand issue-based campaign as candidates sign the peace pact. And we have PDP mom as multi-million naira bribery scandal rocks the National Working Committee. Reps raise alarm over Ebola threats in Nigeria, and I was happy that we have overcome Ebola. You know, recently I saw that Uganda actually struggling with Ebola, and I think that is really, really a very serious, illness that should be taken seriously, because we were celebrated when we were actually, able to eradicate that. And for us to see that Reps is raising an alarm that possibly there is another threat for Ebola, then we really, really need to be careful. We're still fighting monkeypox. Yeah. We still have Lassa fever, we have cholera, we have diarrhea, and now we are having Ebola coming up again. Not to forget the COVID-19 is still very much alive with us. So I just hope that this will not just be another, it's just a threat, but we have to take this seriously. Whatever it needs to be done, we need to do it. Go to the latter to be able to fight Ebola. Whatever the measures are, let it not just be left, but that it will go down to the grassroots level, because it will always surprise you to know that they are always at the receiving end. Nothing is being done to, enlighten them, give them all they need to know about how to prevent this, what to eat, how to clean their environment, and all of that. So I hope that we'll actually do all of that at the end of the day.
And I would like to say there might have been a lapse somewhere for this to be happening. Let's look at how globally COVID-19 was tackled. There was restriction of movement, especially to countries, in and out of countries that were still affected. Now, we still have countries that are affected with Ebola. Did the government restrict movement into Nigeria? These are still West African countries. So whether we like, they are neighbors, some of these countries, I know we can go by road, not even air and all of that. And you know that there are still these cases in this country. Over the years, were there restriction on traveling? Like when you would have the COVID-19 test and all of that before you move, was there Ebola testing before if you're coming from like Guinea, to say, like I'm making an example now, where they test like for Ebola before you move into the country, or was there negligence? Because as long as there are neighboring countries in West Africa that are still fighting Ebola, then it will not be a speculation, but probably a fact that is being on the ground for now, that this could still be coming back because there has been movement in and out between these countries.
Of course, of course. So I hope that we'll actually check, especially the Uganda that is very, very, it's very out. Will restrict people from going there, and also Ugandans from coming to Nigeria. The last story here, which is still on the NACO, 60.7% pass with credit in maths and English. You can read that on page 9, and that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On the Daily Sun, still on 2023 election, I will remove structures retarding Nigeria's progress. This is coming from Peter Obi. Tension as soldiers invade Anambra community, kill one and injure others. You can read that story on page 4. And the big story, amid Buhari's caution, presidential candidates sign peace accord. And the writer says Shetima stands in for Tinubu, place Nigeria above regional and sectional interests. This is coming from our president, and you can read that on page 13. And this is coming from APC. Withdrawal of letter to Tinubu tears NWC apart. Members want Buhari presidential candidate served. You can read that on page 6. And on the right side of the paper, still on the PDP crisis, takes new twist as 4 NWC members refund 122.4 million naira allegedly given to them by IU. INEC threatens parties with fresh sanctions over late speech campaign funding. NECO releases 2022 SSCE internal results, record 70% pass in maths and English. You can read that report on page 30. Supreme Court affirms Osun governor-elect valid PDP candidate, and you can read that on page 30. And that's all the news on Daily Sun.
On the Punch newspaper, power sector loses 420 billion naira annual revenue. This is coming from Gensco's that you can read on page 21. And PDP National Working Committee members write IU reject housing allowances. Economists forecast Naira slight inflation as campaigns begin. And you remember I said with campaign, inflation might actually skyrocket, and we can see that already. Economists are seeing that. Well, we just keep our fingers crossed. Make sure that you have enough foodstuff in your house. Do not destroy properties as much as possible. Any little you can be able to get in your house, make sure you have enough for your family and loved ones at the end of the day. Reps raised the alarm over possible Ebola outbreak. You can read more of that too on the Punch newspaper. Federal government makes fresh offer ASU insists on UTAS. The big story here, APC presidential campaign. Tinubu to pacify Adamu, governors with 2,000 appointments. The writer following that say party disown leak letter denies one-man show allegation against candidate. Aggrieved National Working Committee members nominees added to the campaign list, and we have explained exclusion. Tinubu absent, Atiku and others signed the peace pact. Buhari demands non-violent polls. And we have Adeleke wins at the Supreme Court. Hometown PDP celebrate. 2 feared dead in Artain clash. Sanwo-Olu suspend the union. And we have 3 EFCC lawyers, 59 others make the Sun list, which you can read on page 17. We have the picture story here where we can see the party members signing the peace accord. So you can grab the Punch newspaper and read any of the story that is of interest to you.
On the Nigerian Tribune, still on the ASU strike, Accountant General to meet ASU to resolve payment platform. 4 PDP NWC members return suspicious 121.6 million paid into their accounts. We paid no bribe to NWC members. This is coming from the PDP. And the big story, controversial letter unsettles APC. Document claims Adamu accuses Tinubu of sidelining NWC in campaign committee membership, says Falake acted in bad faith, demands withdrawal of list. We aren't aware of any letter, Tinubu camp. Adamu didn't write any letter to Tinubu. This is all coming from the APC, and you can read what everyone has to say on page 3. And on the left side of the paper, on the 62nd independence anniversary, how Nigeria can rise again. And no be not, Lawan surrender says, I won't appeal judgment. And on October 1st, rally will still hold in Lekki, Labour Party insists. Police arrest 22 over Lagos Artin cash. Government bans union. You can read that on page 28. Tinubu absent as Atiku, Obi, Konkoso and others sign peace accord. Shatima represent APC candidate. Parties should avoid insult, have issue-based campaign, and this is coming from the president of the country. And there are picture story where you can see Peter Obi, the Labour Party presidential aspirant, Atiku, the PDP presidential aspirant, and there's also a picture where we can see the president shaking hands with with Nyesom Wike. And on the downside of the paper, Supreme Court affirms Adeleke as authentic PDP candidate for Osun election. Party expels Babayemi. You can read that on page 29. How diversion of funds, illegal removal from office, stalled Ibadan Circular Road project. This is coming from Ladoja, and you can find that story on page 2. And that was all the story on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Guardian newspaper, APC distanced self from party chair attack on Tinubu over the PCC membership. Atiku claim of being stepping stone to Igbo presidency laughable, divisionary, says Ohanize. And we have you have lost relevant Bayelsa Deputy Governor blast the NLC TUC. And Birni-Gwari Union raises alarm over increased attack levies by bandits in Kaduna, which you can read on page 29 of the Guardian newspaper. The big story here says, comply with the peace accord, Buhari, Abubakar, Jonathan tell candidates. And we have some writers following that. Buhari say the peace accord with Jonathan contributed to the 2015 election success. Don't allow fake news during campaign, leaders charge stakeholders. And we have vote buying undermining democracy, Kuka wants candidates. Peace accord signifies war in Nigeria, says Sawolu. And we have another writer saying here that we will ensure full compliance with the Electoral Act of 2022. Campaign spending, INEC tells the party. And Peter Obi say, let's think Nigeria, not my turn. And it's really, really important that we look in that direction. We have the big forex scarcity, the Naira, as an article of financial speculation, which you can read more about that on page 4 and 5. Downside of the paper, we have there is nothing to celebrate in Nigeria at 62, says ASU. And it's really, really sad because if you look at Nigeria at 62, everybody have a reason whether we should celebrate or we should, weep for the way things are in the country. Whether should we prefer when we were during the colonial era, or should we say we should go back during the military regime, or do we say we prefer it when we're back to the civilian rule of law? So lots of things are actually, are beginning to cloud our sense of judgment as a nation. And just like the Labour Party candidates say, I stand to agree that it should be about unity of the country, not about it's my turn. Nigeria does not belong to anybody. It belongs to every one of us. So whoever is coming should be that I'm ready to give my own quota for the progress and also the growth of Nigeria. Let not be about my own selfish interests at the end of the day. So with all this that is happening, our Naira is falling, inflation, the oil theft, all of this is as a result of everybody's interested in me, and not about what can this nation benefit at the end of the day. So we just hope that it's not just about signing this peace accord coming from all these political candidates that are coming, but then that they will know what they are signing to make sure that they live according to the Electoral Act. Whatever is demanded of them, they should do that. And also, we should know that we have the right to actually elect the right people, not vote buying, because no matter how much is being given to you, cannot, be equivalent to the peace, the love, and everything you will enjoy as a citizen of the country. So I hope we all take that into cognizance at the end of the day.
You would wish that you could go back to where you could buy a box of cornflakes for 100 naira. There were those who witnessed buying it at 1 naira. Of course, but then when you look at it deeply, it's a sad thing, because if growth is happening, you should be happy where you are. You should be like, oh yeah, the past was beautiful, but you know what? The present is more beautiful, and the future will be more and more beautiful. It only says a start story, meaning where you are is not good and you wish you could go back to the past. So it really is sad thing. And for ASU, I think they have every right to feel like that. We shouldn't be going back and forth with the federal government of Nigeria as a union. We should be where we are at peace, we've gotten what we want, and we're just thinking of the way forward, but not negotiating on the same thing that somewhere in the back of your mind 2 years from now this might still happen. So it is a sad thing, and as I'll keep saying, we are looking forward to a Nigeria where we'll stop wishing we are in the past and just be grateful for where we are, because some sort of growth is happening, and then anticipate for the future. But as it is now, that is not the case. But we are hoping and praying and looking forward to vote in a government that will make us feel like that.
Of course, Rachel. Well, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, Nigeria at 62. Security situation not as worse as when Buhari assumed power, says Lai Mohammed. APC describes claims that Boss Mustafa is backing Atiku as grossly misleading. Reps resume peace parley with ASU in a bid to end 7-month strike. PDP NWC members return 122.4 million naira alleged bribe from IU. And the big story, this is coming from Peter Obi, the real deal or social media sensation. Labour Party candidate ratings skyrocket following endorsement by different polls. Obi enjoying sectional sympathy, social media frenzy. This is coming from the APC. And President of Nigeria, Muhammad Buhari, and Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, at the inauguration of Body of Benches Complex Abuja yesterday. And on the right side of the paper, ICANN drags FIRS to court over tax seal. How Nobel Peace Prize winning Bishop sexually abused underage boys, and you can read that report on the Matrix newspaper. Adeleke wins as Supreme Court dismisses Babayemi's appeal. At the downside of the paper, NACO releases 2022 SSCE internal result records. And that's all the news on the Matrix.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for reading the Matrix. Right at this moment, we'd like to take a break where we can open the phone lines for our callers. And also remember, you can drop your comment on our official Facebook page. We'll be right back after this time out. Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on Echo Television International. We've been looking at various stories that have been reflecting on our papers, and Tinubu has been absent during the peace signing accord, where his running mate Shetima actually represented him, and lots of talks left, right, and center about the bribery that IU gives to some national working committee. So we really love to hear what you have to say about that, whether you feel it's a housing allowance or it's a bribe, and with all the confusion even on the APC about Tinubu on one side and the chairman on another side. A lot is going on in the political realm. So we really love that you'll call us and let us hear what you have to say, and also what you feel about the independent tomorrow, if truly we have something to celebrate as a nation. And I'll be reading the Daily Times newspaper. The first story here, independent draw, and we have on ASU strike, House leadership to seek dialogue with Buhari, says Baja Biamida. And on the alleged bribe, PDP National Working Committee members return 122.4 million naira to the party. The big story on the Daily Times is still on 2023. Buhari advocates issue-based campaign, warns politicians against personal attack and indictment, says signing of the peace accord contributed to peaceful elections in 2015. Downside of the paper, we have Tinubu absent as Atiku, Obi, and other presidential candidates signed the peace accord. And we have Abubakar, INEC chairman, tax candidate on peaceful conduct before and during election. You can read that on page 3. NECO releases the 2022 SSCA results, 60.74% made 5 credits and above. I have Onitsha Port ready to receive cargoes from Oni Lagos Port. This is coming from the NIWA. And the last story here, crisis hit APC as the National Working Committee disregard the PCC. So you can grab the Daily Times and read any of the story that is of interest to you.
On the Nation newspaper, 62 lawyers announce SANS, Shitu Ayedepo, Tahiru on list. Developing countries facing currency depreciation. Makinde Otom inaugurate 110-kilometer road. Supreme Court upholds Adeleke's nomination. Lawan surrender to court ruling. Lagos suspends RTEA and ESCOs. You can read that story on page 6. And the big story...
Okay, sorry, Rich, I have to cut you. We have a caller from Stephen. Hello, good morning. Hello, Stephen. If you can hear me, please go on.
Good morning, and how is today?
Fine, thank you, Mr. Stephen.
What I want to say is that we are tired of old age men coming to rule us again. They have not started ruling now. Bribery and corruption is already going on between APC and PDP. Bribery themselves. They are not competent to rule again. Let us look for a younger person like P2B and vote for him. And let Nigeria, and God should touch Nigeria and let Nigeria change for better, so that everybody can enjoy the benefits of this country. Thank you, God bless.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for that. And everybody's entitled, so do the right thing and choose the right leader to lead this country. Let's go on, please, Rachel.
Still on the Nation newspaper, the big story. Scandal rocks PDP and WC as members return 122.4 million naira. And the writer says, Arapaja Obi Adegunodo Efa to reject strange rent stipends. Outrage over curious payment. Party cashment for chieftains housing allowance. You can continue reading that on page 2 of the Nation newspaper. No rift over APC campaign council, says spokesman. Party chair candidate on same page. You can continue reading that on page 2. Still on the 2023 election, Buhari Abdulsalami worried over spread of fake news. Party presidential candidate signed peace accord, and you can read that story on page 5. And at the downside of the paper, ADC rules out peace deal with presidential candidate Kechukwu. You can find that on page 2. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
And on Nigerian News Direct, we have the DBN disburses 482 billion naira to 208,000 million small-scale enterprise in 1 year. This is coming from the finance minister. Tinubu spokesman Onuga blasts PDP over profligacy. And we have tourism stakeholders decry FL's high call for urgent review downward. Okay, we have another caller. Hello, good morning. Hello, can you hear me? Please go on. Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay. I want to talk on pensioner, especially police.
Okay.
The second issue is sea of ground. Recently, we saw in a newspaper that Boss Mustafa was bribed by Aisha 300 million. I am appealing to federal government to investigate that matter very well, because he has written letter to the National Assembly that they should not remove police from PECOM. And the police has met, the retired prisoner has met the National Assembly. They say that does not concern them. It's an old issue that to face our fight. Our fight will work out very soon. So I am appealing to the federal government to investigate both Mustafa and Aisha, who is the director of PECOM. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that contribution. Now we hope more interrogations will be done, and whoever is responsible, whether the Secretary General of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, or even the Minister of Finance, if they are found guilty, we believe that the full rod of the law will take its place. But until then, more will be done to actually verify that accusation. Still on the Nigerian News Direct, the story here say tourism stakeholders decry FX hike, call for urgent review downward, which you can find inside the paper. The big story here say presidential campaign cancel, controversy trails Adamu's leaked letter to Tinubu. Party discredits the letter. Open letter to Tinubu, not from us. This is coming from the publicity secretary. And we have say people are eager to serve, where you can read all of that on page 3. Downside of the paper, we have on food sufficiency. Lagos state government meets foreign and local investors to address deficit and also propel sustainable food value chain. Supreme Court ruling, Adeleke comments Apex Court dedicates victory to God. We have Victor from Makurdi. Good morning, Mr. Victor.
The issue of PDP that scandal, I think it's a pointer to what is going to happen if these people are voted into office. I can't believe that amount of money will be given to anybody for housing. It is clearly a case of fraud, bribery, and IU should go. Atiku himself has nothing to offer. Peter Obi is the way forward.
Thank you, Mr. Victor, for that
much.
contribution. And it's already obvious, the masses are seeing what is happening even before the elections, with all the scandals that are going on in the various parties. So I believe that you do not need an oracle to come down and actually tell you the right thing to do. You already know the right party and who the person you are to elect into office come 2023. We're still on the Nigerian News Direct. We have another story here that says e-voting will entrench democratic and sport development. This is coming from the NTDA DG. And we have a column here that is coming from Femi Adesina at the back page. So if you're interested in that column, you can read that at the back page of the Nigerian News Direct. And that's all on the Nigerian News Direct.
On the first news newspaper, still on 2023 election, presidential candidates sign peace accord. Obi, Atiku present and Tinubu absent. APC chair Adamu attacks Tinubu over campaign council composition. Party says letter fake, not from Adamu. peace agreement with Jonathan contributed to peaceful election in 2015. This is coming from Muhammadu Buhari. Tinubu's absence at peace sparks outrage. Still on PDP primary, Supreme Court okays Adeleke's candidacy. INEC reads riot act to parties on campaign spending and hate speech. Release Kanu before it's too late. IPOP warns federal government. 7-month strike, rep meets with ASU. NECO releases results of 2022 SSCE. Bandit deserve no mercy, require death penalty. This is coming from Matawale. And the big story on the first news, PDP quakes again. NWC members return IU. Mysterious 93.6 million largesses. 28.8 million paid into my account. Shocking and surprising. National Vice Chairman from the South. Money now subject of malicious media report. National Vice Chairman Southwest. People now insinuating his bribe from IU to buy our support in his fight against Wike. This is coming from the National Women Leader. I have reservation about money transferred into my account. GPT says I won't appeal judgment. Still on the first news, Buhari cautions Tinubu, Atiku, Obi and others against hate speech. Catholic Church lifts ban on controversial cleric Mbaka's Adoration Ministry. And that was all the news on the first news.
On Daily Independent, we have fifth columnist infiltrated APC as Adamu denies the letter to Tinubu. Silon Mbaka's Adoration Ministry reopens after 3-month suspension. The big story here says hope raises as reps broker peace between the federal government and ASU, union to meet Accountant General on choice of payment system, Bajabia and Mida to transmit reports of meeting to Buhari in days, and we hope it do not take so much days at the end of the day. The Northwest Governor Niger Marida region wants ban on boxer motorcycles. You can read that on page 7. Buhari asks political actors to shun personal attack indictment. Warn judiciary to maintain position of an honest arbiter, which you can read on page 6. And the Supreme Court have affirmed Governor-elect Adeleke as the PDP Osun Guba candidate. Lawan accept the court ruling ending ambition to return to Senate, which you can read on page 6. The big story here on the PDP National Working Committee members return 122.4 million naira bribe to help fight Wike allies. The writer say Oyilola, Mazu, Shema, Ayode, we have and lead Atiku's campaign in zones. No bribe was given his housing allowance. This is still coming from the PDP. Downside, we have the LPPC elevates 62 legal practitioners to SAN status, which you can read on page 6. Picture story here, still the members, the various parties are going to sign the peace accord. There we can see Atiku, Obi, Shetima, and also Kwankwaso in attendance. And that's all of the Daily Independence.
On Business Day, oil theft bites deeper as NLNG gas supply drops by 38%. And the big story, Obi, Tinubu, Kwankwaso yet to unveil manifesto. Tinubu absent as others sign peace accord. Federal government, 437 million naira for 2023 budget unrealistic. DBN disburses 512 billion naira loans in 5 years to MSMEs. You can turn to page 2 of the Business Day to read more of that. WMBIZ holds Chiamanda Adichie Saraki others at 21st annual conference. Collaboration, innovation, and others key to improving insurance sector. This is coming from Olunchi, and you can turn to page 30 on the Business Day newspaper to read more of that. And that's all the news on Business Day.
And on the Voice of Liberty, we have on 2023, we have to take power to rescue Nigeria for the sake of our children, coming from the PDP candidate Atiku. And on Kaduna, insecurity, terrorists, tax burning Gwari farmers, 12 million naira to harvest their crops. And we know it's already the August where we have harvest going on, and that is supposed to even to signal that food prices in the market will be very cheap. But it's obvious from what is happening, terrorism has actually affected that. Imagine that you have to pay such an amount of money. We had that case in Niger State where before they even went to the farm to plant, they had to make some negotiation with terrorists and pay an amount of money. And terrorists are not people you actually make negotiation with them, because they can change their mind at any point. And here we are seeing that they have to pay 12 million naira to harvest their own crops. Not to talk about where we have herders actually, destroying some of these plants after they are full grown, releasing their cattle into the farms. So I think a lot needs to be done. I wonder what the government of Kaduna is doing about an issue like this. If it is on the paper, that means the government is aware of this. So we should not just leave this to Kaduna, but we should rally around that state and see what we can do to help the farmers over there. Because if there is no foodstuff in the market, definitely everybody will suffer at the end of the day. So I hope that the government will do something to actually secure the lives of the farmers at the end. Still on the Voice of Liberty, not made a mistake in 2015. This is coming from the collusion of northern groups. And on 2023 election, shun personal attacks, insults, campaign on issues, Buhari to Atiku, Tinubu, Obi, and others. And we have here President Muhammadu Buhari has advised all the candidates in the 2023 general election to engage in issue-based campaign while selling their candidacy to the Nigerian electorate. On 2023 electionary, DSS police caution political parties against violence. And still on the 2023, we are shocked El-Rufai with massive outing this weekend. This is coming from the Obedient. Senate panel summons NNPC boss over oil theft, subsidy, dilapidated refineries under his watch, which you can get from the Voice of Liberty. And on the bribery allegation, PDP National Working Committee members return over 90 million naira mysteriously paid into bank accounts. And downside, we still have a countdown for those who are still in the den of the terrorists, 185 days. And that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On the Sporting Live newspaper, Barcelona and Juventus interested in Man United's Dalot. Arsenal keeping tabs. Mbappe doesn't want Neymar in PSG at all. Man City versus Man United. Stone absent from training. Tyson Fury claims again Anthony Joshua fight is off. Atletico plan to reassign the Gay. Why Haaland snubbed Man United. This is coming from Romano. Messi rumors fruitless before World Cup. Dennis trains with Nottingham Forest. I will want to be a doctor, says Amosun. Targets 11.09 record, warns athletes against drugs. And there's a big story where there's Villarreal training. Chukwueze back after withdrawing from Nigeria's September games. You can read that on page 5. Romano, Man United prioritize Anthony signing over Osimhen. And Awoniyi throws banter at Dennis. I cooked for you in Belgium. You can read what he has to say on page 5. Why we made Toby Amazon brand ambassador. This is coming from Glow. And that's all the news on Sporting Live.
Okay, let me round it up with a Point newspaper. The big, which is on 2023 polls, Fazy battles ahead of the 96.2 million Nigerians collect PVC. The writer following that, Lagos, Kano, Kaduna, Rivers lead pack. Elections no longer business as usual. This is coming from an analyst. Managing directors of 6 Nigerian banks earned 821 million naira remuneration in the first half of the 2022, which we have a rider Access First Bank of Nigeria, UBA, Zenith, Stanbic, IBTC and other paid 291 billion naira wages salaries in 6 months. Still on the point, we have jubilation in Osun as the Supreme Court affirms Adeleke authentic PDP candidate. Military Ozodima recommits to fight against criminality in the southeast. And we have the news on the Olubamisi alleged mother lower part damage. This is coming from a weakness, and you can get the points and read any of the story that is of interest to you. Thank you so much for keeping a day with us on the Dailies. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this with me.
Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you to all our crew members and to our callers that call in this morning. Thank you so much for making a day with us. Have a happy day, have a happy weekend, and also happy independence in advance.